Oliver, as Howard Webb had his say on all things VAR. What did you make of that programme tonight?
Yeah, I rewatched it actually. I thought it was really interesting. I really like Howard Webb's transparent approach. I like the fact that he's willing and able to admit to his officials making errors. And listen, he's been full of apologies since he took over in what, January, 10 months or so ago. I think the long and short of it is we've got to find solutions. You know, it's all well and good for him to make apologies. And I have to say, some of the sort of kind of sorries now are wearing thin with fans. It was an interesting watch. He pulls apart the decisions, didn't he? It's funny, isn't it? Because I looked at it and he said, Gusto was the right decision on, for example, the Chelsea sending off. He explained away the disallowed goal for Luis Diaz for Liverpool at Tottenham. I mean, we could pick away and sort of kind of pick that apart for weeks on end, and it feels like we already have, to be honest. And then also he touched on the Kovacic, potential sending off on Sunday for Manchester City against Arsenal. And, this is the big one, really, that the Sun have focused on, which is Michael Oliver, arguably England's top ref. He's an incredibly decorated official. I think he's the best in the Premier League. And he basically saying, look, he should have been sent off, not necessarily for that brutal over-the-top tackle on Odegaard, but he thought that Webb thought actually the yellow card, the original decision, was right and shouldn't be overturned. He wouldn't have had a complaint if he'd initially given him a red card. That wouldn't have been deemed a serious error to overturn. But it was the culmination of the two. So the second foul shortly afterwards, which was a clip on Declan Rice to leave him escaping. These are the kind of things that we're going to debate about. They're a bit subjective, and we might not disagree. I mean, I personally thought the Kovacic should have been sent off for the first one. Never mind the second. It didn't need the second yellow card. And I'm not sure, truth be told, it's interesting to watch. But what do we actually gain out of the show? I'm all for it, from more transparency. But what do we actually gain apart from more frustration? I like to see people open. It makes really good copy. It makes really good TV. But the long and short of it, we've got to come to a better solution where sooner or later we've got to find a better way forward for VAR.
Well, John, I'm going to put exactly that question to David. David, what do we actually gain? And what did you make of Howard Webb's kind of performance and some of those kind of key bits tonight?
Yeah, like John, there's good transparency there. Howard Webb speaks well. He's confident. At least there's a face now to the refereeing body, the PGMOL. A few things you pick up on. One, there are so many apologies now, as John points out, too many, that we get the explanations before the programme actually airs. And this was kind of just repeating it with a lot of management speak. And although some admissions of wrongdoing, a lot of standing up for his colleagues, employees, friends. And on that point, you do notice from the clips that are broadcast, it's very friendly and pally in terms of everybody using nicknames for each other. It doesn't feel the most strict professional environment. Whether that will make a difference to the decision making or not, I'm not sure. But certainly there was a huge lapse in concentration in that incident. You also notice that, a lot of the accents come from the same area of the country. And that's something that the PGMOL Premier League are working on. There's an elite referee development plan where they're trying to diversify and improve the quality of referees. On the Liverpool incident, well, you can't really sugarcoat it, and it's pretty clear what's happened there, and that's a regrettable incident. There's not a great deal more to say on it. On the particular one at Arsenal, I found it really interesting that sort of Howard Webb confirmed that it was a mistake. We all saw that. Probably Michael Oliver, reflecting on it, would. But he sort of suggested, Howard Webb, that Michael Oliver didn't want to overreact. And the feeling watching it and looking at social media and commentary around the show is that you've just got to apply the rules. It reminds me of the Mike Dean incident in reference to the Mark Cucurella hair pulling. He sort of wanted to help his mate out who had his teammate out who had had a tough day. But it's not about that. And I think the public, at a time where trust is really low in the officials, and a lot of that needs to be rebuilt now, just want to see the standard, the quality of refereeing, officiating, VARing improve, and following the laws would be a good start.
Yeah, I mean, David makes the point, John, about it all being a little bit matey. If you think other sports, if you think rugby, but particularly cricket, where the language is more formal, the process is quite calm, but it's checked through. And I accept that cricket is more of a stop-start game than football. And I think Howard Webb talked about Darren England, I think, trying to kind of get through the decision to kind of almost speed things up in that Liverpool-Tottenham incident. But do you think that it is a bit matey, and actually it seems like they're going to learn from that one in particular, but the language could be more formal, and the protocols need to be followed in a more kind of formulaic type way?
Yeah, I do actually. I do think it almost felt like a bit sort of banterish, really. And, I do think you could kind of sharpen it up. I mean, the other thing that really struck me throughout this was that, when we initially heard the recording of the Diaz kind of VAR room, was the sheer chaos within that recording. I mean, in the control room between the VAR and the assistant VAR, I just don't know how they came to a decision. And I think basically, just choose your words, and then basically, cut out the matey, cut out the nicknames, and almost get straight to the point, really. Listen, I think if there's one thing that's really good to come out of this, then is, when Liverpool really demanded and went on the front foot with that statement and sort of kind of almost embarrassed, people, didn't they, really, on it. In doing that, in driving that change, they brought about a change. They brought about an extra layer of transparency. So you have that, they announced this, didn't they, the PGMOL, in the middle of last week, which was basically to have an extra check by the assistant VAR. So the VAR signs it off, but before he does that, he does confirm it with the assistant VAR. That gives you an extra layer of security. I'm quite sure that next season, hopefully, it will get Premier League using the semi-automated offsides, which is another step forward. And I guess, going public like this, will divide opinion of its value. But the one thing is for sure, it highlights the problem, brings it to the fore. Clubs are fed up, they want change, and hopefully this will bring change and improvement. That's the most important thing. And I guess, these highlighting of mistakes, and there have been too many, will hopefully drive that.